Welcome back to this episode of Don't Skip the Legal. In this episode, I sit down with my very close friend, seasoned attorney Vincent Verdiramo of Jersey City, New Jersey, for an insightful conversation that goes into sort of the exploration of the multifaceted landscape of real estate and its legal dimensions. Nowadays, with Airbnb properties, fixing and flipping them up, there's a lot of interest in real estate. And so in this episode, I'm hoping to dig into some of the topics of due diligence in real estate transactions, things like property inspections to title insurance and environmental concerns, leaving no stone unturned. I want to help you discover what the elements are and the backbone of a successful real estate deal. Obviously, clear written agreements are essential, especially in family and friendly partnerships. We are going to discuss the significance of a well-structured agreement to avoid potential disputes and complications down the road. When it comes to real estate transactions in the urban environment, well, we're going to sit down and we're going to discuss the complexities of Airbnb rentals, uncovering the legal challenges and regulations surrounding the properties that have become increasingly popular. So here, I'm hopeful that you will gain some valuable insight to help you protect your interests. And most importantly, I want to emphasize the vital role lawyers play in real estate transactions, not only in New Jersey, but also in Colorado. But this episode by no means is limited to those two jurisdictions. I think overall, the information you're going to gather in this episode is going to be incredibly helpful for you. So making sure that you engage legal professionals in your transactions is paramount to ensuring that your transactions are properly structured and safeguarded. So in this episode, a goldmine of knowledge for anyone who's involved in the real estate market. Don't miss this opportunity to bolster your real estate experience with Legal Edge. So now, let's dig in. I'm Andy Contaguglia, your corporate casual Denver-based business attorney, bringing you the Don't Skip the Legal podcast, where you can listen in on the real stories, the real stakes, and the real legal lessons from real business owners just like you. These behind-the-door conversations about business are instrumental to your success. This is where the deals are made, negotiations are discussed, and company problems are identified, leading you to overcoming the challenges we all face in our business. This podcast is your invitation to where the real business happens, and also where the best ideas take place. So let's get behind the doors in business and break down these legal lessons. And overall, remember, don't skip the legal. Welcome to the Don't Skip the Legal podcast. I'm Andy Contaguglia, and I just am sort of, we'll call this being in the field, I guess. I'm in San Diego. I'm at a lawyer conference. And of course, my very close friend, Vincent Verdiramo, is here, and this guy is
from New Jersey.
There you go, from New Jersey. I'll give you a moment. But we're in this opportunity now with sort of the building of this podcast and looking at and helping businesses in our law practice. I thought interviewing Vinny, who has a strong connection to, we'll say, businesses that broke the law and representing them as a lawyer.
Not in a personal sense. Strictly as an attorney.
As an attorney. So, Vinny, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners and tell everybody who you are?
Hi. Okay. Vinny Verdiramo, Jersey City, New Jersey. Firm is Verdiramo and Verdiramo. I was lucky enough to get out of law school and to practice with my dad, who practices to this day.
Who's your dad now?
He's 86.
Good gracious.
Yeah, he's 86. And, he started the firm in 1965 and practiced a lot of criminal law and real estate and personal injury and related stuff, litigation. And then 86, I joined him and I've been there ever since.
And how did you feel sort of working with your dad? I mean, I look back at my kids and I'm like, I don't think I want my kids working for me or with me, but that must have been a great experience for you.
It has been and continues to be, a priceless experience.
So you entered the practice of law working with your dad at, we're going to say your dad was a high profile lawyer in Jersey City at that time, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, but I started actually working for my dad when I was like 12 years old. I used to take the bus and from Secaucus to Jersey City and do filing in his office. So yeah, I've been around his law firm. You would say I was bred for this job. Since I was about 12.
That's great. And you had some incredible experiences, I think, with some of the clientele that your dad represented. Tell me a little bit more about the kind of law practice.
You want the pool table story.
The pool table story.
You want the pool table story.
Stuff, but this is how you grew up being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Many of us.
My dad had a pretty high profile criminal practice. It all started with believe it or not, he got a not guilty verdict where the police officer testified that he saw my dad's client with a gun in the other man's mouth. And somehow dad got a not guilty on it. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And so he built a real good practice, did very well. And as a result, he had lots of interesting people that stepped off the path. And, some of them were good people that messed up and some of them were just bad people.
Yeah. And he built a practice also. He made a name for himself in New Jersey representing a lot of organized crime.
Yeah, he did a lot of that type of work in federal court, yeah.
So the reason I think...
But I would say it was kind of a crazy thing to happen to a young man, but just leave it at that.
Growing up in as the son working in your father's criminal defense practice, that's pretty remarkable. Yeah. Not necessarily an accomplishment per se, but just a hell of a way to start your legal career.
Yeah. I'll tell him the pool story. Real fast.
To the pool story.
The playing pool story. When I was in high school, if I got a bad grade, there was punishment. Well, you grew up at a time when the parents were strict, very strict. I'm going to tell you right now, my dad was very, very strict. But I got 2 C's on my report card once in high school. And so I was grounded, which means I wasn't leaving the house after come home and that was it. And the one good thing was they had a pool table in the basement. Mm-hmm. So I just started playing a lot of pool. A lot of pool. One day, my dad would have clients come to the house sometimes and things. One time, this guy came in and he said, "Hey, you playing pool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was just shooting pool." He said, "Can I play?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So he racked them up. He then ran the table 3 straight racks. I never touched the ball. It's like boom, 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 boom. 3 tables. And then he's like, "That was fun. Take it easy." And he goes back up the stairs. And later on, I saw my dad, and I was like, "Who was that guy?" And he goes, he told me his name. I can't remember the name. And he said, he's been charged with a triple murder. And I'm like, "Thanks. Yeah, that's good to know."
That's the guy. Now you know why he ran 3 tables.
Yeah, I mean, that was old school. Dad's old school.
That's great.
And God bless him.
And you've been able to sort of build your own law practice as well.
Yeah.
And part of the work. Tell us about the kind of work that you are doing nowadays as a lawyer.
I have a nice little practice that it's real estate, it's litigation, it's unfortunately the occasional First Amendment case. It used to be more active, but that work ebbs and flows. And I have to think that the fact that it's slowed down is due to the successes that we've had and that I hope we continue to be able to maintain.
Right.
Real estate's been important. Real estate is what got me through COVID. I mean, I always had a pretty good real estate practice, but real estate is what got me through COVID because the weirdest thing was the whole world shut down and Hudson County real estate exploded.
Yeah, everybody started building or buying properties during COVID. Yeah. Interest rates were like at nothing.
Yeah, they were giving money away. Yeah. And people wanted to participate. A lot of people jumped into that market. And the weird thing about this market, as opposed to, let's say, the 2008 market, when that crash happened, it happened because all of those values had been pumped up, but the people weren't qualified for the loans. And it was like people putting nothing down at the closing table. Right. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Getting home equity lines at the same time they're buying a house. It's like, wait a minute, you just bought the place. Where's the equity? But this is what was driving that market. It was crazy. Now, the numbers are much, much higher, and the down payments are like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. So it's very real.
Is a lot of your practice nowadays representing people in real estate transactions?
It's happening. Yeah, certainly for the last several years. I mean, I still do a lot of criminal and municipal court work and that sort of thing, and PI, obviously, but Of COVID, like say, so you were saying about the effect of COVID.
Yeah, and that's it. You built your real estate practice during COVID. Well, you had a lot of real estate, but real estate was really kicking off in the middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. You managed to keep your law practice thriving through that. And
surviving's a better word.
I think everybody was surviving.
I don't know that anybody thrived, except the real estate developers. They did, but anyway, different story. Go ahead.
Well, tell me about the types of real estate businesses that you are representing. Are these like individual people going out?
I have everything from first-time home buyers or sellers. I have real estate that has to get sold pursuant to a divorce.
Let me ask you this.
Or estates.
Help me understand why would I, just as Joe Citizen, need to have an attorney when I'm buying my first house?
Because for most, if not everyone, it's the largest transaction of their entire life.
Right, but wouldn't that be covered by my realtor? Would my realtor be the one protecting me through that?
A realtor's not representing you. Even when it's the buyer's broker, there's still an inherent conflict of interest always. As much as real estate agents are incredibly important to the transaction, I'm not saying that they're not. People should be independently represented by counsel because there are inherent conflicts of interest that happen all the time in a real estate transaction, not to mention, any number of substantive issues involved with either the home's construction, the state of the title, et cetera.
And when you're representing these individuals, let's sort of step away from the first-time home buyer situation, but in a situation nowadays where, like, I represent a number of people who are involved in, they team up with their brother, they team up with their sister, and they put together sort of these real estate, partnerships, these real estate LLCs to go out and buy properties for Airbnb or to fix them and flip them and to do all those things. Where are you engaged in those types of transactions?
Okay, I do a lot of that. And for all of the above type of clients doing that. So my classic example is one guy's got some money, another guy's got some money, a third guy's got some money, they throw it together. They're either all builders or one of them or two of them are builders, and they can identify property to purchase and either demo it and then build something new or rehabilitate what's there. A lot of that depends on a designation from a historical commission. But that's one way that it goes. Other times you'll have situations out of estates that things need to be sold. And, then there's clients that want to sell like portfolios. You've got clients that have significant assets and they may want to divest some of it. And then you talk about 1031 exchanges and all that other things that are real important in commercial real estate transactions. Absolutely. Depending on the type of client. And most of the people that are going to take advantage of that tax code, it's just the greatest thing for them, yeah.
Well, what I've always realized is even in situations where everybody's really close in the building of that company. So like I represent right now a husband, a wife, and a brother. The three of them together.
In an LLC, I assume?
In an LLC, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. But it was one of those things where they were like, they knew they needed to do it. They didn't know why they needed to do it, but they called me up and they're like, listen, we don't know why, but we think this is what we need to do. And I'm like, listen, the fact that you guys are approaching this now, here you are with your husband and your brother working with you. That creates its own set of chaos in the business world.
Could certainly has potential for that.
Yeah, but they're calling me up and they're saying,
could also work out beautifully, but
but they want, hey, put together an operating agreement, help the three of us.
Well, they're being smart.
Yeah. How does that work?
Well,
seen that.
Everybody, first of all, any kind of lender is going to require an operating agreement. So depending on the relationship of the people in the venture and the level of trust and other bonds, they'll dictate to you. I mean, there are some people that for purposes of a real estate transaction can get away with a down and dirty, pro forma operating agreement. That they still want you to prepare and is still required by the lenders. In other transactions, the interrelationship, the amount of contribution, everything else. So it's a more involved agreement. But either way, everybody getting into that kind of a deal should have an LLC, of course. And they should have a written and advised upon LLC.
And have you ever dealt with sort of the ramifications of people who didn't follow that rule?
Yeah, it's called litigation. Good paper makes good partners.
Yeah.
That's something I was taught by my dad, and it's important. If it's a good idea to get everything down in writing, and even despite the fact that you're in a family relationship with people or partners, et cetera, every deal needs its own LLC because it just protects them.
Yeah, it defines your roles and responsibilities.
Yeah. Oftentimes, it really just has more to do with, because lots of the people that I work with have been clients of the firm for 20, 30 years.
Right.
So, you make those forms to them, and they do different deals with different people, but,
Do you ever represent like buyers? I mean, it sounds like you're doing sort of both sides of the transaction at times, but
never in the same transaction.
No, that would be
a massive ethics violation.
Yes, it would.
No. One side or the other, but not both.
Oh, but
it's amazing though. That raises an issue for your listeners. Yeah, some of you can be told, sure, we can both use the same lawyer. No, you can't. In fact, very first day of law school, real property class, Professor Cornwald, 1983, probably in early September. I don't remember the date. First words out of his mouth. You will be asked to represent both sides of a real estate transaction. You can't do that. It's like the first thing I learned in law school.
You got lucky.
Yeah, it's pretty basic.
Acceptance and consideration.
Yeah, that's Professor Cornwald.
But do you take a different approach when you're representing the buyer side versus the selling side?
Different concepts, different things we have to watch out for.
So I think in many situations.
Before we go any further on transactions, especially in a small law firm, because I don't want to give your listeners I'm a small law firm. It's myself, 2 different paralegals, a receptionist. My dad comes in, but he's pretty much retired now.
Right.
But so shout out to assistants, paralegals, law clerks. I couldn't be me without the people that have worked with me for all these years. So
there's importance in building a good team.
Yeah, man. Oh, God. And especially in real estate. This is massively important. If you don't have a good real estate paralegal, don't do real estate work.
Let's take a moment to acknowledge the importance of legal knowledge in the business world. Legal issues can be a minefield, but they don't have to be. That's why I am thrilled to introduce you to a resource that will be your guiding light through these challenges. Get ready to discover the ultimate legal companion for entrepreneurs. I am excited to introduce you to Don't Skip the Legal, the startup guide for entrepreneurs and business owners, your ultimate companion for conquering the legal challenges of entrepreneurship. It is authored by me, Andy Contaguglia, a seasoned business lawyer based here in Denver, Colorado. This book is your roadmap to navigating the legal landscape with confidence. Inside, you'll find valuable insights on choosing the right business entity, understanding fiduciary duties, tackling financing options, hiring employees, and even nailing down the perfect business name and location. But that's not all. You can get your hands on this essential guide in both Kindle and paperback form, making it super convenient for you. If you're ready to empower your business with knowledge, head over to Amazon, head over to Kindle, and grab your copy of Don't Skip the Legal today. For more details and updates, visit don'tskipthelegal.com, and don't let the legal hold you back in succeeding in business. With Don't Skip the Legal, the startup guide for entrepreneurs and business owners, you can take your business to new heights. Available on Amazon and Kindle. Now let's get back to the pod.
What is a good real estate paralegal going to do differently than a bad one?
Well, I guess the most important thing is responsiveness, promptness, attention to detail, knowledge of the subject, servicing the client, being tight with the title companies, moving the paper, making sure that the different boxes get checked off to all bring it in for a smooth closing.
Well, I think what people misunderstand in a real estate transaction, I mean, they show up at the closing table, it's at the title company, and the title company just puts sign here, sign here, sign here, everything in front. They're showing up and they're doing the signature component of it. For those of us on the other side going through that is just massive amounts of time reviewing all the paperwork, making sure it's, representing everybody's interests for the most part.
As the buyers of counsel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. Just because you have a good real estate paralegal doesn't mean you don't read the contract.
No, I didn't suggest that.
I know you didn't, but it's a partnership is what was my point. You've got to have people you can rely on in your office.
Yeah.
If you don't, and no, real estate agents can't give you legal advice. They shouldn't give you legal advice, although a lot do. Smart ones don't. Smart ones refer clients to attorneys that they know talk about.
Right.
You know?
So let's get back to the organization of these real estate LLCs that we're talking about. How are you typically seeing these structured for people? What kind of work? What are you putting together? Are you putting them together as LLCs? Or are you doing corporations? What does that look? Partnerships?
Truthfully, it seems like everybody wants to do an LLC, and I think a lot of that comes from their accountants, and that's fine. I mean, if that's the way they want to proceed, and I think it gives them it gives them the protection that they're looking for statutorily.
Well, LLCs,
it makes sense.
They're so easy to operate, and the rules are lax. Every state's going to have a little bit of thing.
It's still an S corp. I mean, but again, I think it comes back to the accountant, and if that's how the market wants to move. I'm not going to look. I don't know that my normal client in a small partnership is any better in an LLC or in an S corp.
That's for people like me. Tax people.
I'm not a tax attorney. I don't give tax advice. To my understanding, an LLC and an S corp practice function very, very similarly. But the accountants, on behalf of their clients, who are my clients, recommend that they're in an LLC, so we put them in an LLC.
So, all right. So let's say you're representing a small group of, we'll call them like real estate investors or real estate business partnership, however you want to define that. Take my situation. You've got the husband, the wife, and the brother. And what do you do in a situation where you know there's something wrong with the seller? And when I mean that, you sort of have this gut that something's not fitting right. What are you looking at when you're looking into doing your due diligence?
Give me an example of what you're referring to.
No, but
because that's pretty abstract.
The situation that you had with the fake paperwork.
Well, that at the time. All right. Well, your listeners don't know what we're referring to.
No.
I recently had a transaction. Okay, this brings up another point. Before even getting into the facts, always get title insurance. If anyone like a realtor tells you can do a deal without title insurance, that's obscene. If anybody, whether it's a realtor or anybody else, always get title insurance. I know in a lot of states like Florida and elsewhere, there's a bunch of states where people only use title companies. I don't agree with that. Again, there's an issue for title policies title companies, but that's a whole other thing. I always think you should be represented by counsel, but about the operating agreements, absolutely get the operating agreement. And don't rely just on the title company, and always be represented by counsel.
So how do you approach, or tell us the story, you're representing a group of buyers on a piece of property. This was just recently. What happened? What came about in that situation?
The internet is an ugly thing. Okay? And I'm not going to give away names or locations or anything, but something for everybody to watch out for, because apparently it's very prevalent, and why you should always purchase title insurance. Because you're relying on the title company to ensure that who you're getting your property from and you're paying money to is actually the person who owns it, amongst other issues, judgments, etc. But I recently had a deal where my client found a piece of property online, which is yet another thing to be concerned about. And subsequently, I was contacted by an attorney on behalf of the seller of that property, who had a seemingly reputable law firm. Everything seemed to be clicking on the other side. Nothing out of the ordinary speaking with those attorneys. Contract comes in, we review it. Typically in New Jersey, when a standard contract comes in, and that's prepared by people, either by themselves or by a real estate broker, attorneys decline it, reject it, subject to agreement on a whole list of stipulation that we then exchange and negotiate. So worked all of that out. Everything normal, no problem. The thing now is on closings, the old-fashioned closing, everybody getting around a table, doesn't exist anymore. It's all done through the title company. It's all done through overnight mail. I can't even imagine the amount of money in checks that like FedEx handles on a daily day.
Right.
It must be just the most ridiculous number. But anyway, because even if the closing took place 3 towns away, the check from my client is sent either by wire or by FedEx to the office. So that's how that stuff works these days. Got to have title insurance though, because.
Well, what happened in your particular case?
Client finds a piece of property. We go through everything,
right?
Like I just described.
It's all looking good.
We close. We close with the title company through the mail.
What happened?
We find out, and it's a long story about how we found out, and I can't get into it to the greatest extent. But somehow we start to wonder, hey, did that deal we did a couple of weeks ago, was that legit deal? And through a whole series of back and forth and a lot of investigation, et cetera, we determined that the owner of the property, who was listed on all the documents as being within city A, signed the deed in front of a notary in Texas. Now, the whole thing is, that's what you're relying on the title company for. Title company can't, they're acting as the closing agent. You're paying them to do this and take on that liability. Well, anyway, long story short, it turns out that the deed tendered by the seller who lives in A, but assigns the document in B, and we're talking 2,000 miles away from each other. Apparently the notary didn't get the proper identification. He's supposed to get a photo of the person's ID. That didn't happen. So the title company, they rely on the people, and they made a mistake. They were defrauded. And as a result of the insurance my client bought, we were reimbursed. But the whole thing is finding property on the internet, out-of-state signing agents, things that should make you start to blink, and never ever give out your wiring information over the telephone, ever, and double verify it.
Yeah, I had a client that was sort of working.
I know that sounds obvious now, but
well, I had a client who was in a similar situation and went to go wire money for a real estate transaction, mm-hmm. and somehow the money not the money, but the communication, someone had hacked the system basically and found out, and then started playing this role play in mm-hmm. it, and he got scammed into sending money to these people. Look, I think he was smart enough to realize that it was happening. I don't think he actually went through the transaction, but it was one of those things. But
yeah, there's all kinds of phone scams. I mean, I'm sure you've done a show about that. People calling up grandparents to pay off ransom on their grandkids and crazy shit like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this was a scam. The sophistication of it, I thought was remarkable. Now, in fact, you want to laugh. It's crazy. We're talking about it tonight. I got a phone call earlier today during our conference. I stepped out of the room, and it was the owner of the property that my client supposedly bought, but it was a fraudulent transfer, right? And we got the money back. A deed needs to get filed to take the title out of my client's name back into the woman who was the quote unquote real seller, because the real seller's property is now in my client's name. So she called me today, and because she tried to pay her taxes, she went to the town to pay her taxes, and the property's still in my client's name. So, I promised her we'd get it resolved. It's not her fault. It's not my client's fault. There's just some really sophisticated people out there that look, they got past 2 law firms. And then what's wild, a couple weeks after that, different client completely goes into a contract for a piece of land that I was actually familiar with because it's in my neighborhood where my office is. And they're getting it. And we proceed with that transaction. And then in the midst of that transaction, we get a call from the attorney for the real owner of the property saying that they had heard somehow that somebody was trying to say that they were selling their property, and they were letting us know that it's not a real deal. So we quashed that one before it even happened.
Right.
Thank God. So this is something that's happening, and it's happening in hot real estate markets on available property. You just got to be super careful. Yeah, best thing to do, deal with a reputable real estate agent. You know, that's develop a relationship with a good realtor. And once you do that, somebody that's knowledgeable in the market that you're interested in, whether it's commercial or, you know, residential, and just get a good relationship with a good broker.
Well, I think that is a good segue sort of into the next, you know, piece of this, which is, do you ever see your clients get a little overconfident in the way that they are going about their investments or making hasty or unwise investment decisions? I mean, when you see that happening, or what, better yet, what do you see happening in situations like that? And what are you doing to curtail that?
In the real estate sector?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about real estate. I just want to put a caveat on everything I'm about to say. I don't give investment advice. Okay? I don't ever tell a client that's a good investment. I will tell clients, in my opinion, that something's a bad investment.
Right.
If it's very glaring.
Well, we're not there to give investment advice. We're there to give legal advice.
Yeah, I'm not giving
about whether
advice.
Legally this is a good transaction.
You know, and sometimes people ask me about my opinion on the market, and I can just report accurately, you know, recent deals in my office. You know, some
facts, man.
Yeah, and without really a lot of specifics, but I represented somebody in the Heights over on, you know, whatever avenue. And they just sold a piece of property for, you know, XYZ, you know, without that. But, you know, when you do enough real estate, you know, you sort of know what the value is in the market. What I've been blown away by is just how it just keeps going up. And I mean, I was born and raised in Jersey City. The idea that real estate would be worth what it is now just blows my mind. Blows my mind. I wish I had had the foresight for this 20 years ago.
You would have bought more property.
You know, hindsight is 20/20, and karma's a fucker, right? But, you know, yeah, I wish I knew. But nobody would have known what happened. You know, real estate was always a nice investment,
right?
But nobody would have ever realized what was about to happen because of COVID. COVID changed everything in the real estate market.
I think that whole industry is, I mean, it's changed immensely because of that.
It's, you know, it seems it's cooling off now. It was, and just, you know, where I am, you know, Jersey City's become the 7th borough. Hoboken used to be hot and still is hot. Hoboken's a great place. But what's happened in Jersey City in the last 10 years, it's crazy.
Well, it's the 7th borough of...
It is. It's the 7th borough of New York City. Yeah, in so many respects. And Jersey City itself is quite large.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, it's a big town. Going all the way down to the tip of Greenville by Bayonne. And then you realize Bayonne goes that whole distance and then over the bridge of Staten Island.
Right.
And then from, you know, like I said, the tip of Bayonne all the way up to where Jersey City meets Union City. You know, and then like very quickly thereafter, North Bergen. Jersey's, I don't know, was it like 11 or 12, 13 miles from one side to the other? A lot of, and I think it's New Jersey's 2nd or 3rd largest city. Yeah.
I miss that part of the country.
Yeah, well, come on home, brother. That's where your family's from. It's where you went to law school.
I try.
You know, and you know. Maybe one of these days I'll even get this organization we belong to come.
One day.
I certainly keep trying. I feel like a lonely cheerleader stuck in a closet somewhere. But anyway, go ahead.
For everybody, let's go to Jersey City.
Yeah, Jersey City, and they all look at me. And yet they're like, Manhattan is too much money. It's too expensive for us.
And you're like, this is Jersey.
Just come on over here. It's another subway stop. Honestly, it's another subway stop. And you know what? In so many respects, the way I look at it, there's no reason to go to New York anymore. There's so many great restaurants, so many cool things to do. And did you hear about the congestion pricing they're going to do in Manhattan?
No.
They have this in Paris. They have this in London. They have this in Rome. Maybe even Milan also. It's a thing where on certain days, if you're in a car and you go into a certain zone, there's a surcharge on top of. And they call it congestion pricing. Oh, and the idea is to reduce the traffic flow. So now you're paying at the Lincoln or Holland Tunnel now, I don't know, what is it, $17, $18? I got the Easy Pass. I'm not exactly positive, but yeah, it's something like that. 16,
you have to pay
18.
to go into Manhattan.
Right.
They let you out for free.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. They get you out for free. Yeah. But for the traffic. But now apparently they're going to hit you with like a $50 charge if you go anywhere like south of a certain street. I think it's like 60th.
For a certain time of day.
No.
No? At all?
I think that's it. I'm not positive. Don't hold me to that. But yeah, like $50 to go to Manhattan on top of the toll. Unless you're like, up in the Bronx.
I keep wondering why I want to go back to that place. There's no better place on the planet.
Now, to my knowledge, that doesn't exist anywhere in the United States. Not even LA.
No, I remember when I was down in South America in Ecuador, they had this thing called Plico y Placa. And like different days of the week.
They have that in Costa Rica.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
If you're.
Yeah, odd or even whether you can go in.
Yeah, exactly.
And they tell you that the night before on the news and shit. And like everybody has a calendar. Yeah, that's how it is in Costa Rica.
All right, let's get back to talking about the real estate business. What are the types of issues that you see among business owners? So like for me, I represent companies. And I don't always represent the individuals, in that business in an individual capacity, unless it's like a one person owned LLC or something like that.
Yeah, that depends on the size of the company.
But in representing corporations and representing LLCs, what do you see in terms of things that make successful companies, the nature of the communication between the owners?
You know what? In a small LLC, again, I'm going to use the family group, the friends group that are buying and selling real estate and, flipping houses and things like that, which is a big, big business back where I am, still to this day. The success is going to be about trust. It's going to be about communication, anything that you would normally expect. And it's the people that like say one thing to one guy and another guy to another guy. The other thing that you see sometimes is some people are way too trusting. I've been made aware of like any number of transactions where the proper documentation wasn't prepared.
Right.
I found, people came to me about these things long after it had happened. And going back to what I said before, good paper makes good partners. If you're willing to give a person X number of dollars, it's not unreasonable for you to get something back in writing acknowledging that. Acknowledging the terms. And contracts have been held to be enforceable that were written on the back of a napkin.
Yeah, bad contracts are still binding.
Yeah.
Well, the big case that we study in law school, Lucy versus Zimmer, is that whole case about writing the contract on the napkin.
Yeah. Just it's not insulting to say, can we get it in writing? It's your money. It's the effort of your hard work.
I think you need to take it a step further. So I was meeting with a client the other day, and he comes in and he shows me the contract. He wants to talk about a breach of contract, and he sits down and he shows me this contract. And one thing I always ask my client is, all right, tell me what this contract means in your own words. Because when you and I sit down, Vin, and we read through a contract, we know what to look for. We know what the terms mean. Mm-hmm. We know the obligations of everybody in there because...
So how did you just phrase that? What your dreams are? What are you looking for? How did you phrase that?
No. What are your goals and your obligations?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to accomplish?
The client calls me up these days and says, Vinny, I found a piece of property on X Street. This is the price. It's me, X, Y, and Z. Same deal like we did over blah, blah, blah. Make up the paperwork. Contract's going to be coming over. I'll call you later. That's a typical conversation with a lot of my clients these days.
But you should be doing that. The point that I'm trying to make is...
No, but the point is this. I know where you're going with it, the question, unless I'm wrong. You got to know your client first.
Right.
So the only way to answer your question appropriately is, what's your relationship with your client? And, don't be afraid to say to people, when it's obvious that, they put all their money together and they've been working shit jobs and now they've got the money to make a down payment on a house, to say to them, are you like, you really do need to get a home inspection. Yes, you have to get title insurance. and then when the home inspection report comes in, doing the right thing on that.
It's all those steps. And what I see a lot happening, and maybe you do too, is people coming in, they say, hey, I signed this contract, but they say, hey, I got this contract, and they bring it in, they give it to you. And I always ask them saying, all right, what does this contract mean to you? What is your interpretation of this? Well, it's supposed to have A, B, C, and D in it. And then when you read through it, you go, yeah, this contract doesn't have any of that shit. Yeah. So, hey, kudos to you for, being, smart and getting yourself a written contract. But in utilizing legal services, what could that client have done in order to help understand that contract better? Right? Hire me.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I thought you were talking about, in the field, what they should be doing.
That too.
Because by the time I want a client that's sophisticated enough that by the time I have the contract, they've done, and this is even with first-time home buyers, that they've gone and looked at a bunch of places, that they really know what they want, et cetera. Sometimes, depending on the markets, it'll depend on the contract you get into. I mean, you'll have contract, during good times, you'll get a contract in that there's zero contingencies on. I don't care if I got to knock the place down, I want this piece of property. And then in bad times, it's, let's argue about like whether the light switch in the bathroom works. You can get to that level, So you have to have somebody that you're working with, 100%.
Within the organizations themselves, I find that, if the owners are all on the same page, it helps, I think, make a smoother transaction. I mean, you really, I think, in business ownership, you need to make sure that everybody shares the same vision, shares the same mission. And I think that's even the same thing in terms of, buying real estate like this, these small little business partnerships, and making sure that everybody understands what their goals and obligations are within that organization. Because if they're misaligned, some people want to buy homes or buy real estate. They want to build on it and they want to rent them out. Some people want to be able to do Airbnb short-term rentals. Others want to, take this really bad broken down house, fix it up and flip it for a profit. Each of those is a very different direction for one to take. And just because you and I want to go into real estate together, you got to make sure that you're on the same page.
Again, it goes back to what I've said several times. It's all about getting it in writing, make sure everybody's clear. More importantly, sometimes the paper might be more important in a family situation, a close friendship situation. People would be like, this is the guy, this is my family, this is my cousin, my sister, my whatever. They might need the better paper more than your sophisticated, normal guy that's doing business.
Why do you think that?
Because I've seen some really ugly family fights over 38 years. Over the ownership. Or like, mom and dad die without a will. Or a will that appointed the brother/sister, to be the executor. And that person is consumed with grief.
Can't execute their responsibility.
Can't be the executor of the estate. I have a horrible case in my office right now where a man was deceased and nobody knew for over 2 years until they found the man's body in the house.
2 years?
Yeah, over 2 years.
Nobody decided to go and check on him or anything. That is totally sad.
Yeah, that's a very sad story. I'll never say the name of the people or where it happened.
Of course not. Of course not.
That happened.
That is.
And I'm not going to talk about that case anymore.
Works for me. What are you finding in terms of things that are going bad? Let's talk about a couple war stories. Any other real estate stories that have come up throughout your years of practice that people can learn from so they don't get themselves in a similar situation?
It depends on where your listeners are. There's always local conditions on real estate dependent on the geography and the history of the land and what has taken place there. Has it always been farmland?
Yeah.
Was it a gas station? Was it a manufacturing facility? Was it a car garage? Was it a dry cleaners? Places that oftentimes historically have environmental contamination. If you're a commercial person thinking about into commercial, and there's a lot down the corner that you want to buy and redevelop and do something cool with, you got to know whether it was a gas station or not. And if you and the best thing to do when you're going to do commercial property, I think, especially when you're going to convert the use, since you don't really know what the prior use was, or you think you do, but maybe you're not, you got to get a phase 1 environmental test done. Phase 1 report. Anybody that does commercial work and doesn't do that, that's a mistake.
I think people believe that engaging in these business transactions, these real estate transactions, is something that is easy to do on their own. I mean, you talk about contracts and paperwork and things like that, but the real estate transactions I see people mostly doing are not involving attorneys. They're using
that's a geographic thing then.
Maybe you see that. So you see people, the real estate deals out east.
Yeah,
much more significantly with.
You always have a lawyer in New York. You always have a new lawyer in New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts.
See, in Colorado, I think
the title companies have taken over that business.
Yeah, pretty much.
But now, but how are they then dealing with a purchaser of a multifamily dwelling?
Well, in that situation, you're going to use the bank. You'll have the title company.
No, but
you'll have
there's
your
so many other.
broker.
Is that property rent controlled? Is that property bearing the appropriate certificates of inspection from the state, whatever bureau of whatever, in charge of inspecting? Is the builder that built its, if it's a new condominium development, are his licenses still active and certified? There's countless things that need to be, does the building have any violations on it? Is the rent that's legally to be able to be charged registered with the appropriate rent control? Unless it's exempt.
Are the tenants in the property?
Yeah,
late on their rent.
Where are the leases? Where are is the title company doing that for you?
No. So we're mashing over a couple different things. And the example that you gave is like a multi.
But you see, I'm mashing over it because that's what a real estate deal is back east.
Right.
If it's different out west, I apologize.
I'm saying, no, don't, because there are people all over listening to this. And I think it's a good distinction because there are certainly real estate transactions that I've done in Colorado that involve exactly those things, those due diligence points.
That's all due diligence,
sure that,
yes.
Listen, if I'm going to buy this building for $10 million, part of what I need to understand is making sure that the rent I'm getting from the other tenants in the building are going to be able to accommodate. It's no different than doing an acquisition of another business. You're now just switching it out to real estate.
That gets back to an issue you were talking about earlier, like why do you hire the lawyer?
Yeah.
Because in the contract, you've got to make sure that there's the appropriate due diligence clauses and the ability for your client to do the kind of test I was talking about before the phase 1. You might have to do invasive drilling. And a lot of times they come up with hydrocarbons. And if they come up with hydrocarbons, then you have to send that soil sample into the state and they have to come out and they got to do remediation. And then they start basically digging until they find clean dirt.
There's underground storage tanks that have been leaking.
Well, a UST clause is standard in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And then, practice changed. Years ago, it was perfectly okay to open up the tank, clean it, so that it wiped out clean, fill it with sand, close it up, and then leave the tank right in the ground. And those were called abandoned certified tanks. And now in New Jersey, most lenders want them out. So practically every deal, whether it's commercial or residential, has an oil tank sweep clause in it, where another expert that clients should hire, definitely, is to do a tank sweep on the property to make sure there's no oil tank in the ground. And that's standard. Now out here is what mostly where you work. It's mostly gas, or they're underground tanks still.
No, there's the fuel tanks. There are underground tanks. Propane and stuff are usually above ground.
Propane.
Yeah.
So there's no propane used by me because it's urban. Right.
Now we're talking about some big properties. I mean, maybe like ranches, rural properties, I think in the city. But what I'm seeing also in the Colorado market these small business partnerships being put together and people going out and wanting to buy a number of different properties for Airbnb, and making sure that, the deals that I'm getting involved in that respect, it's you're buying a residential property, even though it's for a commercial purpose. You're not buying necessarily a multi-component business.
That deal amongst partners, assuming it's in an LLC, should just have a clear LLC about division of responsibility, especially. Okay, but now here's a bigger issue in the Airbnb thing. That was a big driver in the market. Okay, especially during COVID, you had some pretty big hedge funds form corporations that then bought up property to make them B&Bs.
Right.
And then you've got the young couple that had some spare cash and thought they could roll it into a new property. And they buy a new property and they're going to run it as an Airbnb in an urban environment. This is very common in Jersey City right now. Lots of jurisdictions are looking at regulations that make that illegal or limit the amount of time.
Or the number of properties you can own.
Well, that's a Fifth Amendment taking. I think that's completely
different.
I'd be happy to litigate that one. Who the hell is the government to tell me how many things I can own? But I mean, I think that's a layup constitutionally. And if it's not, America has changed. Yeah. And we're done.
Let's get back to the other piece that you were talking about, though.
But anyway, no, this is an important point.
Okay.
Airbnbs, if you made that investment and you're in a jurisdiction that is looking to outlaw them, it really behooves you to join the organizations that are being formed in those cities to fight that type of change of legislation in that town, because otherwise, that money you were counting on is gone, or you're going to break the law and pay the consequences.
All right. Well, Vin, listen, we've been at this for almost an hour. It's great to...
I don't think I said anything that's going to help them. It's all obvious.
That's good. What they want to be entertained. They want the conversation.
I think what
they
I said
want to hear you.
Nah.
All good stuff.
No, I think everything I said was obvious. And if it wasn't and you learned something, cool. No, real estate's great. I've seen some clients do very, very well in it. I think real estate represents America. Okay, I don't want to sound like, and this isn't going to get political, believe me. I think that I've seen every ethnic group that ever made it in this country. Our people come from Italy, right? You get off the boat, wherever you come from, you work hard in this country, and you make investments. And usually those people's first investment was real estate.
Yeah.
And from that, family fortunes and legacies and security and prosperity in the immigrant experience. So it's really important that, we make sure as a country that, people can still buy real estate. A lot of people are getting priced out of the market now.
Yeah.
Families, kids and shit. And I worry about the next generation being able to purchase real estate. But it is clearly the way to build wealth. And just do it and do it right the way we tried to talk about it today.
Well, good. Well, Vinny, again, thank you. And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah.
What's your website?
You know what? I don't have a website.
What? Don't have a website?
No, that's real. That's true.
I have no reason to doubt you.
No, my whole business is referral. I'm not kidding around. Thank God for my clients. I guess I'm doing something right.
That's good.
I don't even have a website. I don't do any marketing. I'm busy. Thank God the folks that I have keep me busy. I don't want to be a big fish.
There you go.
I just like practicing law and helping the people that are my clients.
I think that's all anybody.
And I'm in Jersey City. If you want to find me, I'm in Jersey City.
There you go. That's how you can
I'm pretty much the only guy named Vinny that's worth a shit, so call me.
All right, man. It's always a pleasure.
All right, man.
Catch up with you
soon. Love you.
You too.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Skip the Legal podcast. I'm your host, Andy Contaguglia. I hope you enjoyed our time together and this great opportunity to peek behind the business door and examine the legal lessons in business. If you're keen to hear how these lessons can be applied in the real world, well, join us next week for another episode where you can listen in to another business success story. As always, you can head over to contaguglia.com/podcast to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at AJCESQ. Thanks again. This is Andy Contaguglia reminding you to don't skip the legal. Good luck. The legal information contained in this podcast is intended for general informational and entertainment purposes only. It should only be used as a starting point for addressing your specific legal issue. The legal information I talk about does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and me. This podcast is not a substitute for an in-person or telephonic consultation with a lawyer who is licensed to practice in your jurisdiction about your specific legal issue, and you should not rely on this legal information for those purposes. You understand that questions and answers or other information contained in this podcast are not confidential and are not subject to attorney-client privilege. I am not providing you a legal service. Every legal case is different, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Please consult your own attorney.